Ever wanted to know about the history of midwifery, being a midwife, understanding that beautiful birthing world? Well, guess what? I have an amazing guest, Miss Dyese Osaze, owner of Najuma Birthing, who will be giving us that history of the phenomenal profession of midwifery. This is an episode that you do not want to miss. Stay tuned. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Real Reading Talk. I am your most gracious host, Miss Seisha. And with Real Reading Talk, I discuss the real systemic issues in a real way about the high levels of illiteracy that plague the Black community and the ways in which we can combat these issues together, y'all. Yes, indeed. I am just absolutely super pumped because I have a phenomenal, beautiful guest on my show today. This sister right here, she is going to be educating us, y'all, on the history of midwifery. Okay. Yes, indeed. Yes, on this show of Real Reading Talk, because we're going to dive in as to why this topic is very important in terms of how our babies are being birthed and how all of this is linked to building that strong foundational skills that they need when it comes to literacy. So, with that being said, I would love to welcome my absolute phenomenal guest, Miss Dyese Osaze. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Alhamdulillah.
Yes, I
It's
thank
good to
you.
be
And girl,
here.
yes, I am just, oh my goodness. And like I told you, I said I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna make sure I'm saying every syllable correct,
Right,
right?
right. I
Your
appreciate
beautiful
it.
name. Yes,
People
indeed.
butcher it all the time.
I can Okay, you know how it is. I can
Yeah,
only imagine.
yeah, yeah.
Well, again, like I told our guests, you are not just only a beautiful spirit inside and of course pleasing to the eyes, very gorgeous.
Thank you.
Alhamdulillah, praises due to
Alhamdulillah.
God. And you just have a wealth of knowledge that when you and I were talking before
Hmm.
about this topic, and then my gears
Build.
start going, and I said, okay, you know what? Can I press record on this on my podcast, Real
I
Reading Talk?
know. I know. It needs to be talked about. And
Yes,
I've noticed that just people don't know the history in this country.
exactly.
And it's so vital to how we birth our children. It's very
Yes.
important. Yeah.
And I thank you. And that's why I said, okay, you know what? I said, who else, who should I ask in terms of talking about this? Because of the way you are, when I see you, your posts with our babies, with the parents, and how
Hmm.
you just have this loving, touch, this warmth that comes through the screen that everybody gets a chance to see. And before we dive into what it is that you do and the history, we need to know about you, Miss Daisy. So I
Yes,
want to get background, just like our guests want to get background on
absolutely.
definitely of who you are, and tell us who you are, where you were born and how you grew up. Go ahead and
Yes,
dive right on in, please.
of course. Well, I want to start off and say that all good that comes from this talk is from Allah, and anything that, is maybe not correct or is negative is coming from me, and I take ownership. I love when lectures they start that off just to say and praise Allah all the time. Um, so yes, I would say I was born and raised here in Cleveland, Ohio. And my parents had a strong, very strong, uh, I would say, hand in what I do. So I started off, how should I say, went to high school, went to college. It was, that was the thing to do. It was very important to go to school. And so I went to college and to become an OBGYN. Um, and so I saw that after a while that trying to go down that route, it was just not working out like I thought it would. And we can get into that later, but just the background is that I am a Black woman here and a traditional birth worker. And I would say this has definitely been a calling. I've always wanted to do birth work. I remember asking my mom if I could be at my brother's birth. I wanted to be at my cousin's birth, but they said I was too young. So it's just always have been something that has been a part of me. And I didn't know that it would look like this when I was younger. Yeah.
Wow. That is amazing. I mean, just for you to even just have that spirit as a young woman, well, as a young girl, actually, not young woman, a young girl, growing
Hmm.
up, having that attitude, like, yes, I want to be able to be a part of, this process and helping women who are giving birth. That is so beautiful. I
It
mean,
was
really.
something about it. It really was something about it. I mean, I asked for my brother. That was one thing. I was like, I don't know what y'all got going on, but I would love to have a sibling. And they came through. And
Wow.
they were able to bless me with a brother, and I just loved on him so much. I did wish that I could be there. He and I were born at the hospital. My father was also born at the same hospital. So, we have that in common. um, but yeah, my cousin, oh my goodness, my aunt was pregnant with my cousin. I just was head over heels. I'm like, do you need anything? I got you. And that was my baby. That was my baby. It was like I was the one that was pregnant. She was just holding the baby, holding the baby for me. And we joke about that all the time. She was, I would say, my first doula client, you know what I mean?
Wow.
Because I was really doing everything to make sure that she was okay. Because I just was so fascinated as her belly got bigger. I was just like, ah, this is
Wow.
amazing.
Wow.
And
And
so I
how old
guess
were you how old were you again when this
my
when
cousin and I was 10 when he was born.
oh my God.
Yes, my brother and I are 5 years. I was four, turning five when he was born. And
Oh
then my
wow.
cousin, who I'm thinking of, we're 10 years apart. So this,
Wow.
yeah.
Goodness. That is just like, oh my, I'm just like, just because I just, the number one, I'm thinking about myself. I'm like, at that age, I know I wasn't thinking about, oh my goodness, just caring
Babe,
about like the birth,
yeah.
rate, and it's like, I was thinking about just kicking it, you know what I'm saying? Watching some TV or something, playing with
Right.
whatever.
I was still playing with Barbies, and I had like their whole house, everything. They had everything decked out. I joke about taking like the ads, the weekly ads from the grocery stores, and cutting those out and using those as their groceries. I'm telling you, that was just my world back then.
You was on a whole nother level. See,
Yeah.
you was one of them kind of kids. You
Yeah, I
just
was
like
one of
was just
those.
have that foresight. You just saw things. You just like listen, just having that kind of care and having that literally nurturing spirit, and I know
Yeah.
that for little girls, we typically have that, but I'm talking about you had it
Yeah.
like more on a whole nother level though.
That's why it feels like it's a calling. And I try to explain that it does feel that way. It's just back then, all I knew was OBGYN. So
Mm.
the background is in high school, my dad's like, what is it that he sat me down? What is it that you want to do? And I knew in middle school, like I enjoyed sciences. I enjoyed my class. I love school. And I didn't care if teacher's pet was a negative thing. I loved my teachers. I love school. My parents can attest to that for sure. I love school. I really did. And yeah, so high school came around, like focusing more on what is it that you want to do. And I vividly remember him, we had an opportunity, and it was 11th grade. It was a symposium to get prepared for. And so we had an opportunity to shadow different doctors. Because it was that summer beforehand where he was just like, well, what do you want to do? And then he actually had me sit down, and I told him I wanted to be a doctor. So he had me look up all of the different physicians, and OBGYN just stood out. I'm like, man, this is it. This is it right here. I didn't know anything about midwifery at the time. That's all I knew was OB. And so I got a chance to shadow and be at UH. And I'm still in touch with the nurse that took me under her wing. Shout out to Nurse Brenda. Miss Brenda, she was amazing. She is amazing. Um, and she took me under her wing, and I fell in love with it. And I'm like, this is what I want to do. Um, and so I guess this is a good segue in the sense that my background and wanting to be an OBGYN, I look back and I see that I was not fully prepared for the rigors of what it took. And all I knew is that, okay, I saw it, but how to get there and how to successfully navigate that route, I did not know.
Mhm.
Um, and going back to my upbringing, my preparation for it, I saw that my sciences, my math, I was really good at it until I wasn't. And I realized that eighth grade to ninth grade is where I fell through the cracks in my school. And so I had eighth grade math, and then I went to ninth grade, and they just put me in algebra two. Some students really already took algebra one in eighth grade, and I come to realize, my peers, they're succeeding, and I'm like, why is this so difficult? Eighth grade math to algebra two, and it's just like it looks like a foreign language. And then my teachers would just say like, they're trying to figure out why I'm not getting it. And I wish that my parents were alerted on on the situation prior to. It just turned out to be too much time gone by, and in order to graduate on time and continue on with my normal progression of school, I was one of those students that fell through the cracks. So not having that base, I ended up just pushing through. uh, and it is a requirement legally for students to have Algebra 1 before graduating. And unfortunately, my guidance counselor at the time just pulled me to the side, did not alert my parents, and put it on my transcript and just said that I took it. And me, 14 years old, I'm like, cool, it's just a class I don't have to take. I didn't know how significant that was going to be. And I wish that my parents had known about that. um and this is years later. Is water under the bridge now. I'm grateful for where I am, but I wish that had they been involved, or not involved, but had they been alerted of the situation, I would have been able to take my time and really dive into the sciences, because I learned the hard way once I got to college that I was not prepared for chemistry.
Mhm.
That beginner's chemistry kicked my butt. And I'm thinking I'm going to be able to major just like the rest of the students, and I was already behind. Um, so, that
Yeah,
was tough,
yeah.
knowing that I could have done a lot more with my sciences and my math had
Mm,
I had that strong foundation. Because it was kind of like once I found out, it was too late. So I'm
right.
going back and I'm trying to build the blocks, but it was like time is
Mm,
ticking. And
right.
then when you're applying to medical school, you need to have great grades. I'm saying, especially as a Black student, you need to have your grades on point from the
Mm,
jump. They don't want to see too many C's. And that's where in college it was like I can't keep trying to major in this
mm,
knowing that it's just not working out.
mm,
Uh, and so yeah, I ended up majoring in anthropology. I loved it.
mm,
I loved college, everything about it. It was wonderful. I got to run from my school, keep up with athletics, which was a very, very big thing. In
mm.
our household, my dad was like, everybody has to work out. Fitness is a big thing in this household.
Right.
And I appreciate it now. When I was younger, I didn't understand it, but I do appreciate it now.
Mm.
Yeah,
So
so.
like all of this, you so many different questions, right, going through my mind as you're talking, because the first thing that stands out to me is how you said the lack of preparation
Mhm.
that you had, right? And I love how even with you even just talking about with your parents, because again, me being a parent, understanding, we are trying to do the best that we can. And as the saying goes, as we know better, we do better, right? And
Right.
you're all, definitely trying our best to make sure that we're doing right. Those parents who care, let me say that.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately,
Absolutely.
you got some who don't.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But you definitely, I love how you always speak highly, of your mom and dad in terms of,
Hmm.
whatever shortcomings, whatever, that their intentions were pure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so I guess, what my question is though, is that what would you say that parents should be doing, especially as it pertains to, because to me, math and reading, all of that is connected, because when you are strong in your math skills, first of all, you have to be strong in your reading skills, because
Absolutely.
we know that math, you're going to have to be able to read those story problems. You're going to have those different, problems where you're going to have to understand the language, what it is that
Mm-hmm.
you're asking. What can parents do right now to help prepare their child just in case they do want to go into that STEM field, which, by the way, we have still a very minuscule amount of Black children, Black folks who are going into the STEM fields because of what you just said, not being
Yeah.
prepared. What can
Yeah.
the parents do?
Pay attention to what the children are interested in when they're young, and maybe give them the opportunities to hone in on this. And I'm not saying my parents didn't do this by all means. I feel like looking back, they've done everything that they could.
Mm-hmm.
Especially my father. He, even would try to help me with calculus, and he's just like, look, I don't even know. Bless his heart. He
Right.
tried. But I think just looking into this situation as being a person who was so interested in being a part of the STEM field, and just I got a late start to it, and that's what was told to me. Um, Later on, once it was already too late, that I had gotten a late start. So getting the children involved in the early, allowing, introducing it to them. Like I said, um, it just seemed like it was a late start for me. So if it was middle school, sometimes even elementary school, getting encouraging them the sciences, because we're so intelligent. Black people, we are so intelligent. We have created so much in this world, and to be able to harvest that and hone in on it, I
Mm-hmm.
think when they're still babies, when they're still young, so that way it's a foundation already there, instead of it being rocky like mine was, and then it wasn't stable enough to succeed. You know,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I love that. And like, even I'm thinking about like, just I guess on a basic level. So like, for example, because I know I was talking to she's a professor, I believe, and I did her show some years ago, and she's like high level, science and math,
Mm.
person. And I know she talked about in terms of just things like baking, right? You know what I'm saying? How
Yeah,
doing different things like that, and just
I love baking.
right. Those basic
Yeah,
things, would you say and suggest that parents just get more involved in terms of like simple things like that in the house, right? That's science.
absolutely. I
What
mean, me
was some
speaking
things?
as a baker, it's been
Yes.
well over 15 years of baking for me. It was my great grandmother. I tell you, her pies and her cakes,
Mm.
they were so good.
Okay. Hey, y'all, sidebar,
Sidebar.
all related. Honey, was it the lemon velvet
That
cake?
lemon velvet, yeah, yeah.
Y'all, and I already got a problem with sweets. Oh, Lord.
You and I both.
Oh my God. Y'all,
That's because my
telling
great
you that.
grandmother, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that's her. This is Diese's other talent. Okay, she love them babies, and the sister know how to throw down when it come to the cooking. I'm just saying.
I
I'm
just
just saying. Just saying.
Yeah, and that was a lot of experimenting. So my dad also was big on side hustles, and so when I was coming up, that was something that I was good at. And so I would make pies, and I would sell cookies at
Hmm.
school. I remember having this big case and take them to school the next day. Yeah, just a
Oh,
side hustle to make sure you didn't have some pocket money, you know.
yes.
And then, yeah, word got around that the cookies were good, everything
Yeah.
was good. So it was a good confidence booster. Yeah. So that was part of my upbringing for sure.
I love that. And again, just tying that all into the science piece, I would love to see, because my wheels are turning. I would love to see our parents, like even when our parents are encouraging our babies. I'm one of them parents too. When my
Mm.
daughter, shout out to my daughter Brita, when she was at John Hay,
Uh-huh.
got that recipe of the sea salt chocolate chip cookies.
Oh.
honey, it was like,
It's
I'm like,
over.
man, they was turning into fiends. They was like, wait,
Yeah,
what is
once
that?
you
Wait,
get
what?
the
Yeah,
recipe, it's dangerous because
exactly,
now you could just make it. You gotta have some
exactly.
discipline.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like even with that, all of that lessons that's being learned, the science piece, right? You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Understanding that, you got to put certain ingredients together, how they work together
It's
in order to
true.
something. And
That's
then the
yeah.
entrepreneurial piece, the confidence piece, like all of
Hmm.
that you just said, these are things that our parents need to hear more of to understand that we have that greatness. We have things inside of us in our homes and our families. We just have to tap more into it. And it's not
Yeah,
just
nurturing it.
right.
Yep. If you see your baby, and I've seen videos online where they'll notice their child is so into a specific task, and so they hone in on it. They get them things that helps them with enriching that skill set.
Right.
I love seeing videos like that because especially the black children, because you can see that at an early age they're being nurtured into the STEM. They're being nurtured into what that could look like early on and moving forward, because we already know that foundation, if it's there, you can build so much after that, you
Yes.
know?
Oh wow, this is great. I love it. I love it. Well, I'm definitely gonna say I'm glad, number one, because now I want to move into more of you talking about midwifery. But
Yeah.
I'm just so glad that you decided to make that jump and say, okay, you know what, I'm gonna start going into looking into more now that the natural birthing process and something that's connected to what our ancestors was doing. Um,
Yeah.
so I
That journey is very
yeah.
interesting as I reflect on it, because college, I was an anthropology major, so
Yeah.
there were times where midwifery would come up, and just learning about other people's culture and how they gave birth.
Mhm.
It was one class, it was something about the reproductive, it was something I can't remember right now, and all I remember, I loved it, right, learning how other people gave birth. So it gave me just a little taste, but I wasn't there yet. I was still
Yeah.
trekking along. I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a doctor, and I kept telling
Mm,
myself that, so that was the thing. College, I couldn't major in the sciences have a good GPA.
mhm,
So it was advised that I could do a post baccalaureate program and take my sciences that way. Yeah, looking back at that, it was just such a whirlwind, and I just kept trekking along. I think not having the serious guidance to be like, maybe you should do this instead. So in any case,
mhm,
I finished college, and then I did that post baccalaureate program, trying to do those sciences, and it's still nothing was really clicking like it should.
mm,
And so I moved back home to Cleveland, and I remember meeting a sister. Shout outs to her, Christian Farmer. She was the founder of Birthing Beautiful Communities, and she sat me to the side. I got the chance to meet her and talk to her, and she was the one that introduced me to those documentaries I sent you about the business of being born, and looking into that, looking into the history of midwifery and us as Black people, and I was like, okay, putting the pieces together bit by bit, and it was already things that Allah was showing me, where it was making sense that my heart is actually no longer in allopathic medicine anyway, and it just like Allah is the best of planners, and
right.
it showed over time that He was working, and I just couldn't see it. I'm still banging my head against the OB door, and
Yeah.
He had something far greater for me, and so I met her, I think, 2018 or so.
Okay.
And because I graduated in 2017. So 2018, I
Okay.
came back and I talked to her. And then so much information started to unfold, learning about natural medicine, learning about herbs. I was just like, this is a whole new world. I just didn't know about all of this stuff. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, man, will I be able to learn about this in medical school? And I started questioning like the
Mm,
system of going into medical school. uh and I was like, we don't even learn about nutrition very much. Like, it's just a lot of stuff that was starting to be revealed on going down that route. And this is no knock, because I have a reverence, and I love and I support doctors. I have friends that are doctors, people who that I've made friends with along that journey. A lot of them didn't understand, my journey, and that's okay. Uh, you know, there's a lot when it comes to that world and the hierarchy and looking down, and I felt that a lot when I moved away from it. So there's no knock to the field. You know, we need doctors, we need OBGYNs because that's what I learned as well. Midwifery is for low risk moms. It's moms who do not have health complications, right? Moms, you know, they're having a healthy pregnancy. And there are a lot of moms who do have healthy pregnancies.
Hmm.
So it is best to have a midwife in that situation because midwives are trained and know what to do with moms that are healthy and low risk. When it comes to high risk, moms who are dealing with preeclampsia, moms who are dealing with hypertension, all of those different things that we do see in this world,
Hmm.
that's where our OBs come in and they are our champions.
Yes.
And so I have a reverence, you know, I wanted to be one at one point. So I never want to make it seem like, you know, they're bad or they're doing this. It's supposed to be a collective team. And you look, and I learned looking at so many documentaries, is that across the world, midwives are revered and they are celebrated and they're called on for low risk mothers, as opposed to the United States, we stand alone for some reason. And it goes back to our history. Midwives are not respected in the same way as they should be. Like across the world, they are respected. And it goes back. It's a hierarchy. You know,
Mhm.
I remember some of my mentors when I said that I wanted to be a midwife. They're just like, but why? You know, you could be a doctor instead, and you're over what they do anyway. And I was like, that's not why I'm trying to go that route. Um, and so 2020 came around and everything was paused.
Yeah.
The school,
Me
everything
too.
was done. I was done with the post baccalaureate, but it was now time for me to try to take this MCAT again.
Okay.
Um, because again, I was trekking along, even though the signs were there that it's time to stop. I
Right.
just was like, I gotta keep going. I gotta keep going because this
Mm.
is what my father has put time and money and has invested in this. You know, I felt like I would be letting everybody down. So many
Mm.
people were, you know, championing me, pushing through, but it just was not happening. It just was
Mm.
not happening. And for others, it seemed like I was quitting, but I really was just struggling. That science, that going back to high school, it went all back to high school
Mhm.
and building it, that confidence and knowing the math,
Mhm.
because I learned that being a doctor is being a scientist, and it was told to me after it was already too late, like, you went through a whole college degree and didn't major in the sciences. You
Mm.
know, it was people, you know, it was the whole, it was hardcore truth and it was hurtful, but
Yeah.
it was something that I did need to hear.
Yep.
But I didn't believe her at the time. It was another doctor mentor of mine, and I just didn't want to hear it because I'm like, but I can still push through, I can still do it. God
Mm.
sat me down 2020 and was like, baby girl, it's not happening and it's
Right.
okay, you know.
Mm.
It
Mm.
makes me emotional thinking about it sometimes because that's all that I said that I was going to do.
Yeah.
And midwifery became that love became a lot stronger, and
Mm.
so I just fed into it and I nurtured it. I
Mm.
reached out to elder midwives, women who were in the field.
Yeah.
I wish that I could have talked to the grand midwives, women who were doing this in, you know, the late 90s, or even go far back, because the history really is that, you know, we've had black midwives.
Mhm.
Let's just say midwifery is one of the oldest professions. Okay, helping women with their children and helping them, making sure that they have a healthy pregnancy and delivery, postpartum. We've been doing this.
Mm.
And
Tell
black
everybody
women,
the difference real quick. Tell everybody the difference. This, I think, is a great point. I just wanted to interject real quick.
absolutely.
The difference between midwifery and being an OBGYN.
Yes,
Yes.
midwifery is for low risk.
Okay.
Yes. So obstetrics is a fairly recent field of medicine.
Okay.
It dates back into the late 1800s,
Okay.
and it has a very dark history. You know,
Okay.
it's something that a lot of people just try to brush under the rug, but we
Mm.
have to talk about it.
And
You
that's
know,
what we
there were
want
a
to do.
lot of white European American
Mhm.
men,
Mhm.
and they were experimenting on black women.
Okay.
during the slave times.
Mm.
And so, really the foundation of obstetrics is on the backs of a lot of our ancestors. It's on the backs of so many Black women who just did not have a chance to speak up. Who was going to fight for them? They were just less than human. So they were experimented on, right? So the history of obstetrics is dark, and it's a fairly new field. But so you have the late 1800s and you move forward. During in this country, we still had slavery in the 1800s. So midwives throughout our time were responsible for the Black families and the white families.
Mhm.
They were responsible for babies that were being born on the plantations.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and so, them, developing obstetrics into part of the medical field, it became where you have people being born at home to now there's this push in the early 1900s where, okay, maybe these midwives are backwards. These midwives, they're dirty, they're uneducated, and so the narrative being pushed out so that way more people could start moving into the hospital system, because that's where they would practice. They practice in a
Okay.
hospital. Midwives, we were practicing at home, especially Black women. We weren't even allowed to go to the hospitals. So we were birthing our children at home. And so there were skilled women who knew what to do if she was dealing with some ailments, if she was sick. There was always some women in the community who knew how to handle a baby when it's time. And so I have so much respect for them, and I would love to, I like to honor them, through my work, because their voice ended up becoming just hushed, right? So you have the early 1900s, they're still practicing at home. However, the push now is like, okay, we need to get people into the hospital. Um, it's because you can see the history from 1900 to 1950, the shift. About half of the families are starting to deliver in the hospitals. And by the 50s, you see, that there is more rhetoric about how backwards and dirty Black midwives were, when really they're the key to helping, so many families. Um, so yeah, obstetrics has it has a dark history, and it's moving forward. It is making progressions, and like I said, we need OBGYNs. We need them, because there are complications that come up, and that comes out of the hands of midwives. So to answer your question, it's we need OBs when it comes to high risk situations versus midwives where they're for low risk situations. And it works as a team, because you can see how inundated our doctors are with work and
Mhm.
having so many patients. If you give us the if you give us the population of moms who are low risk, you can focus on your high risk moms. You can
Mhm.
focus on your specialty, and we can focus on ours, and we're a collaborative team. But I don't see that being the case, because to go back to the history, it became illegal for Black midwives to be able to practice midwifery in this country. You had to start going to nursing school. And you can see how that systemically keeps us out of the field. You have from the early 1900s, I actually don't even know how large a number, but I know that it was a large number of Black women who were midwives, as opposed to now. The number of Black midwives that we have that are practicing are far fewer, far, far fewer. And it's because that gateway, that gate was closed. Now you need to start going to nursing, and they knew that. They knew that it would keep people out of midwifery if you put out there that you have to be a nurse midwife in order to practice. And unfortunately, people even to this day look down upon us if we don't have a nurse midwifery degree.
Mhm.
So there's so much divide within the midwifery world.
Mhm.
And I've noticed that I wasn't fully prepared for it. I was told, that going that route it might be political. It might be difficult.
Mhm.
But now that I'm really in the thick of it, I'm like, wow, they were
Mm.
not lying.
Mm.
They were not lying.
right here, I think is a great place to just hone in on what you said. First and foremost, how you began to listen to yourself, right?
Mhm.
And how you begin to pay attention to the journey that
Yeah.
Allah, those I like to sometimes just remind people when we say Allah, we mean one God.
God, yes.
Hmm. That the law was putting you on, right? Because
Hmm.
again, from your spirit, when you talked about when you were a young child and how you were always gravitating to that
Yeah.
beautiful birthing process, and
Hmm.
how even when with the aspect of you not really being prepared, for that rigor of the medical school, expectations,
Hmm.
and though, but even still, and then even with you learning how you being a doctor, like you said, is being a scientist, and a scientist is somebody who observes, who pays
Hmm.
attentions, who
Absolutely.
listens,
Hmm.
right? And all of that, again, that's that foundation that I just want people to just take note of and understand that greatness, all of that stuff can be honed in, can be nurtured, can be grounded in our babies when we are teaching them, number one, to pay attention, to have that intuition, to pay attention to their strengths, being the
Hmm.
parents who see, like you talked about, those parents who notice that, wow, you have a knack for math. Wow,
Yeah.
you have a knack for speaking, you have a knack for
Hmm.
fashion, you have a knack for cooking, you have a knack for you know, uh, just organizing, right? All of these
Hmm.
different skills, these are things as parents, we got to make sure that we are paying attention to our children and honing in on so that when they are going through this system, which you were talking about, we can teach them to have the confidence to be able
Hmm.
to speak up and say, hey, look, we're here. You're
Hmm.
explaining something about this midwifery. Now, I knew a little bit about midwives. I only thing I think I knew was that, oh wow, it's good to have a midwife. I think that was all I really knew.
Yeah.
I didn't know nothing. You know what
The
I'm saying?
average
Else.
the average American we don't know the history, and
Yeah.
it's hushed because it's so
Yes.
dark. Nobody wants to talk about it,
Oh my
but
God.
it's really dark, and it's really but we need to in order to see where we're at currently.
Yes.
Yeah,
And I'm glad, and this right here is like, just that's why I said you have to be on here to discuss this, because you
yeah.
are encouraging those little girls, or I don't know, I'm quite sure there's some, just like there are male
I've
nurses, there are
noticed. Yeah.
male
Hey,
midwives as well, you know what I'm saying,
there
hey,
are male midwives, just like
yes.
there's male OBs. I
Okay.
don't religiously, I don't personally understand it,
Okay.
but there's some of the best doctors,
Right, exactly.
and
Exactly.
religiously, we are allowed, we are able to go see them if
Of
we
course.
need to. Yeah,
Course, exactly, exactly. So that's why I'm like, let me put that down. I don't want nobody to feel like,
I
hey,
know,
I'm trying to
coming to
discriminate
cancel
or
you.
whatever. Exactly. But the point being is that even again, just educating us, giving us that knowledge on that history, and then just breaking down the whole aspect of. I heard about what's the gynecologist. What he's the demon that was experimenting.
Oh,
Dr. Joy DeGruy
yes.
talked about him. His name is escaping. Marion Sims.
Yes,
Yes,
Marion Sims, whose
they.
statue. I don't know if they finally knocked
I
it down.
I think I heard they knocked it down. You know what I'm
Yeah, I
saying?
don't recall,
Yeah.
but there's no reason to have a statue.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
and I shout out again, I always talk about Dr. Joy DeGruy a lot, because she is one of the trailblazers who've actually introduced us to understanding that history of, he was called the
Mm,
father of gynecology. You know what I'm saying?
really? Yeah.
You
Are
know,
you really?
are
Yeah.
you really, no, the father of just being a demonic spirit once again experimenting on our black bodies. And I just wanted to commend you on that. I want you to again just keep driving home in terms of that educational piece, and why
Hmm.
it's important for our communities to, number one, even our girls who are interested in that medical field, needing more of us in the
Yeah.
midwifery profession.
Yeah.
Because to me, once I'm like, wow, it makes perfect sense, right, in this system where we had our folks dominating a field where it was very positive and
We
helpful and uplifting.
dominated. We dominated.
But now you're saying,
We're barely
that
around.
very, I'm saying, barely a black midwife. And then the component of, you got to have that nursing degree
In
because I
order to,
guess
yeah, in order to work
yes,
and yeah, and be recognized
yes.
within the states. So that was another battle that I had to go through was, okay, I'm done with my post-bac work, I'm done with my undergraduate degree. I am not able to afford to go to nursing school, nor did I really want to. Because as I learned about the traditional ways of learning midwifery, our ancestors, those women would go and be under the tutelage of other women who knew the information. So you had those women, like I said, they were accessible at the time too. So you had women in the community who knew what to do if a woman had twins, if she had breech babies, because that's another can of worms. Knowing what to do when a baby is presenting itself with its feet or its butt first, I just, it's amazing. And I shouted to the rooftops that you can have a vaginal birth and your baby is breech. But unfortunately, there's not enough OBs who are taught how to handle that situation. And
But the
so
midwives are. But the midwives are usually
eh,
taught that,
eh,
right?
but
They
even
are.
but yeah, even the
Okay.
nurse midwives are not taught. So I had to look into the nursing school route as well. There's a lot that goes into that. You know, you're taught to fear a lot of things when you're going into the institutionalized systems. And I was told that by an elder midwife. She shared that, you know, she went the nursing route, but she had to unlearn so much from when she went down that route. And I'm
Mhm.
going to send you that podcast. I wish I had it written down right here so I could shout them out. But
Yeah.
that podcast was just such an eye opener.
Yes.
Um,
And
it
I'll
was
put a
such
link to it too in the
Yes, it
as
was
well.
such an eye opener just
Mhm.
listening to them and their stories. And it was another mentor of mine that I had, Miss Takia, and she was just like, you know, had I been able to go and do it over, I don't know if I would have done the nursing route, but that's all that she knew in order to be a midwife was that you had to go to nursing school.
Mm.
So she didn't fault me for not wanting to go that route.
Of
I
course.
decided to go the cheapest route and go the route the traditional way, and I was able to cross paths with a sister. Shout out to Five. She goes by Five, and she is, you know, she's my mentor. She's a traditional birth worker, traditional midwife, and she's birthed some of her children at home. And I've been able to meet other great women who have had their children at home. And so she went the traditional route. But in mainstream, she's not respected like she should because she doesn't have the CNM behind her name. But yet she's had so much life experience and going to these homes and going to these births and assisting these families, which is more important to me when you're having a home birth as opposed to the credentials. Because again, trying to go the nursing route, I would have had to go through the hospital system first in order to complete my certification. I already knew I wanted to be at home doing home births. So I would have wasted time and money that I didn't have to go down that route when I knew I wanted to be at home and assist women at home. And
Mhm.
so I sought her out, and it just so happened that in Allah's timing, He allowed us to meet, and we're still in connection, and still pushing that spirit of our ancestors, where you are able to birth at home, and you know, she took me under her wing, right? And this is the tradition: is that you have older women who know how to handle births, and you teach the younger women. She brings her daughter. Shout out to her daughter. She brings her daughter, Zuzu, and she's there at the prenatal. She's been there for births, you know, mind you, she's, you know, still so young, but she's in tune. And I love when she's there because it just makes me feel like I wish that I, you know, could have been, you know, could have been there too at that age, right? Could that I could have, you know, like I said at the beginning,
You were
wanted to
there
be
when
at
you were
my,
supposed to be. You were there
yeah.
when you're supposed to be.
That's true. That's true. Absolutely. But I
Mm.
love that she's gotten her daughter
Yes.
into it so young. And even the families we've served have had the young children there because it just normalizes that it's okay. You know,
Mhm.
this is a normal physiological process
Right.
that all women across the world, you know, I shouldn't say all women, I should just say that women across the world have been doing for centuries.
Mhm.
And just normalizing it. So when
Mm.
that elder sister said that she had to unlearn so much, so much fear. I was like, I don't have that yet. I don't want that. So let me not go that route. Didn't think that was the smartest route.
When you said that, honey, I wrote that down
That's
immediately.
yeah,
That right there. I want,
it's fear,
yes.
which is why we don't have enough physicians or enough midwives who know how to handle breech. There's so much fear. There's so much fear. I can't wait to get my hands on another opportunity to learn more. Like I've not yet had in person an in-person breech birth yet, but I've had my training and
Mm,
I'm just on my edge. I'm on the edge of my seat like,
mm,
okay, when is it happening? When is it happening? Cuz I'm like I want to put to use what I've learned cuz
mm,
it's just so amazing the different things that you can do. The Allah has made it to where some baby God has made it to where some babies come feet first, and that doesn't mean that they're a bad in a bad position. There are some positions that are a lot more challenging when it comes to pushing the baby out, but a breech birth is not. There's just so much fear around it and not enough
mm,
providers who know how to handle it.
mm. And you know
Yeah.
what beats that fear? Education,
Yes,
empowerment.
I know. Now
And
that I have the education, I'm like, let's go. Give me a breech baby, please.
love it. And see, in that right here, right here, right here, you are just hitting the nail on the head. And this is what I talk about consistently on Real Reading Talk is the empowerment, the education, and I'm talking to myself first. Again, understanding that when we are empowering our babies and we are letting them know that you have limitless options, tuning in, listening, all of those things which you're talking about, the intuition, all of that stuff was totally tried. That was something that our enemy was trying their best to erase from our people. That right there, that is something that Allah put in us as human
Mhm.
beings to be able to have that spirit of wanting to know, to wanting
Yeah.
to learn, to
Hmm.
build upon what it is that we know already. And then when you talked about the little girl being under the tutelage of her mother
Oh, yeah.
empowering her mother,
Yeah.
you're going to come in here with me. No, I'm not going to teach you that. Oh my God, I'm saying you're too young for this. This is too discuss whatever, all the
Yeah.
fear, all
It's
of the
just
conversation, the rhetoric.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You right here, you talking about this. I'm telling you, you are changing lives.
I
Literally.
pray. I hope
You
so.
are,
Yeah.
inshallah, God willing. Yes,
Inshallah.
you are. I truly believe that. Because
Yeah.
even if somebody is not even wanting to be in this field, even though if they're like, okay, this is not my field, but they're listening to the podcast, they're listening to the information, but whatever field that it is that you're in, whatever field that you see your baby wants to
Right.
get in, what they're gravitating to, you have
Right.
to empower them, educate them, let them know when they ask different questions about certain things, like, okay, yeah, I may not know. Just like how you said with your dad, I may not know
Yeah.
about that calculus, but guess what? I can
I can
find
help
out.
you. Yep. I
I
can
can help.
help you.
I can go and find out somebody that can help you.
Yeah.
Now we
And I
got YouTube
always,
University.
yeah,
Now you know
yes.
what I'm saying. So
And I
for
always
real,
tell, yep, I always tell
go ahead.
families that if it's something that I don't know, I will be sure to ask a colleague, ask somebody else, find it for you. Because
Yeah,
that's the thing too. We can't know everything. And I
exactly.
am humble enough to know that there is way too much information to know
Love it.
everything. And
Yes.
I'm okay with that. I love being able to say that I could specialize in X, Y, and Z. But
Mhm.
in other areas, hey, I call on somebody who has specialized in it because that also takes the load off. It's too much, and it's too much
Yes. Yes.
to try
Oh
to say, "Oh, I
wow.
do this and I do that and I do this." No, I don't.
Mm,
I
mm.
would gladly refer, and then that gives business to other people.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And you
yeah,
know what made me, this is something I just want to just kind of hone on to. And you, of course, you definitely have more of the expertise in this. When you talk about that the midwifery are for the women who have low risk pregnancies, right?
yes,
But would you say that women who typically have high risk pregnancies, is that due to the lack of proper nutrition a lot of times during the pregnancies? And I'm just saying that because I know you
yeah,
mentioned the pre I know I've heard of the
Preeclampsia.
preeclampsia.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe if you have a woman who has, like myself or my daughter Bree, I
Mm-hmm.
had the gestational diabetes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so not paying attention to, being more
Sugars and
healthy,
yeah,
exactly, the sugar
yeah,
intake and all of that. And I had to prick my finger 4 times a day to
yeah.
check, you know what I'm saying? Thank God it didn't turn into diabetes, because
Anything more?
definitely could have
Yeah.
said that could have happened. But however, would you say though that the aspect of not making sure that our moms who are high risk, could the high risk came from them not having the proper nutrition in a lot of cases, or maybe the proper prenatal care? Because I know that's something that in the Black community, a lot of Black women, we tend to still kind of be low in when it comes to the prenatal care.
Mm.
What would you say? I'm just throwing some stuff out here.
I'm not sure, actually.
Okay. Okay.
It's such an intriguing world, being seeing the high risk side. There's
Okay.
so much that goes into it and trying to diagnose and see what's going on with the body. It goes back to being a scientist, right?
Okay.
And
Okay.
figuring out what is going on with the mom and the baby at the same time. So I say I have reverence and I respect doctors. There's things that they do, and I'm just like,
Mm,
my brain just was not clicking, with certain
mm,
things, right? And
mm.
so I'm just gonna say I don't know actually.
Okay.
There's, the health, is very important.
Yeah.
Exercise, all of those things. Um, are very important, right? But then you
Mm.
have, black athletes, women who are at the peak of their health and everything like that, and they're still
Okay.
having complications. They're eating
Gotcha.
healthy and everything. So,
Okay.
Allison Felix is one that comes to mind. She's a renowned world track
Yes.
athlete, right? And so
Right.
I remember seeing her growing up when I was running track. And for her to
Oh,
speak out about the injustices that she faced, I mean, mind you, though, she's a healthy, world renowned athlete. So she's
yeah.
eating right, she's doing
Yeah.
all her things, and it still was something that was going on.
Okay.
So, yeah, it seems like there's more
More
to it.
to it. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that. Thank you. I appreciate that answer. And then
Mm-hmm.
also, it's just, again, a reminder, though, when we're talking about these different subjects, this is what education looks like. This is what
Mm-hmm.
empowerment looks like. We should ask questions. We shouldn't
Absolutely.
feel like, you know what I'm saying? I'm afraid to ask that, or whatever the case may be. And this is something I believe with a lot of our kids they deal with. They're
Yeah.
afraid to ask questions because they're afraid to be looked at. I mean, that's gonna be dumb. So you don't know the answer to that. I mean, what you?
I'm sure I'm guilty of that as a kid, being shy, not
Yeah,
talking a whole lot. I
yeah.
mean, yeah,
A lot of kids. I see it in, in the classrooms, especially me subbing in the schools and stuff. And even when I
yeah.
tutor, I'm reminding, my students, when you don't know something, you ask a question. It doesn't matter, if you feel like, oh my God, this
This
is
is
something that's
stupid.
dumb, it's
Yeah,
stupid, and all
it's
of that
not.
type of stuff. And to also to listen and pay attention, because that is, again, one of the things that, when you talked about you just listening and paying attention to yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and observing. A lot of times we get our information just by being quiet. You
Yeah.
know what I'm
My
saying?
dad was always like, you listen twice as much as you talk. You need to listen
That's why
twice
we
as
got,
much
look,
as you.
2 ears,
Two
right?
ears, one
One
mouth.
mouth.
God, I used to
Exactly.
hate that as a kid, but it's true. Two ears, one
Exactly.
mouth. Listen.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what I want to, in wrapping up everything, what I would like for you to do is, number one, can you give us some different ways in which, you empower? Well, number one, talk about your business, talk about Najuma Birthing,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and then talk about the ways in which you empower, your clients, as it pertains to just helping them have a beautiful birthing experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I will say that I appreciate the partnership and having your books because, like I said offline, the families, they are loving those books, and so it starts with education. It's another good friend of mine. She's really passionate about childbirth education, and we've noticed, we were just talking about it last night, that the education piece is what is the most empowering part when it comes to serving families. You know, the credentials and all the rest of that is fine and dandy, but when it comes down to being able to know what you're talking about and sharing that with families,
Yeah.
whether it falls on deaf ears or not, because that has happened a number of times.
Hmm.
You can tell somebody something to their blue in the face, but it doesn't mean that they're going to receive it, and that's okay. My job is just to make sure that they're educated on what their options are, and supporting them, supporting them in what they want to do, as long as it's within what I feel comfortable doing, and we talk about that throughout the process. If it's at any point where it's like, I don't know if that's the right route, I will step away. There's been situations where moms would decide to get induced just because they're tired of being pregnant. And I have to share with them, when you do that, you are increasing your chances of so much that can happen, because your body is just not ready to have the baby yet. I get it. You're tired of being pregnant. I get it. You are ready to get snapped back or whatever the case is, but you put yourself and your baby at risk because it's just not time. But I can only share what I know, and if it's up to them, if they want to continue, by all means. So it's been times where I've had to share with moms, if you decide to do an elective induction when there's no medical reason to do so, I just would not be able to support you, because I don't want to see that. And I don't want to see you go through that. Because that is another thing that I've learned, is that when we're in those hospital settings, we get secondhand trauma from a lot of things that the family is going through. And I know that opens up another can of worms, but there,
Mm.
I see why our elders, the ones that I was listening to, mentioned how they had to unlearn so much fear, because there's just so much fear within that system.
It's
So
almost like they get you in there, and when you're in there, it's like they start creating this web of just like,
there's
oh my
so
God,
much.
this can happen. You
And
better
I get it.
da
It's
da
a
da da
business.
da da.
It's a
That's
business.
what I'm saying. Like you get it from a business, but not from a humanity
Not a
standpoint.
humanity standpoint, no, but from a
No.
business aspect, everything is about risk.
Yeah.
So they want to make sure this person, if they're in their facility, that they know this can happen and that can happen and this can happen and that can happen. And it's true, but it's like we're only at 23 weeks. Why are we talking about having to have a C-section for a baby whose feet are the baby's head is not down? Babies turn around, they move, you know what I'm saying? And that education of, what our moms, it's unfortunate, because it's like, if they are trying to deliver in a hospital, the chances of them having to have a C-section if they have a breech baby is just, that's just the situation right now, and it really pains my heart, and I wish that there were more options for women to say, I don't want to do that. I want to have a chance, at least a chance, at pushing my baby feet first.
Mm.
If only there were more providers who knew how to handle those situations, because they're out there and it's a real thing. We just don't talk about it enough. So I hope I answered your question. It's just
No, no.
educating them.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. The thing is, oh yeah, that's what I had to think about. And I'm like, okay, wait. I was
Mhm.
asking in terms of with so when you are, can you walk us through like
Yes.
a process of how you do with your clients? Tell everybody exactly your title and
Yeah.
the name of your business and what it is that you do for your clients that you serve.
It looks different. So
Okay.
I'm still in the hospital setting. So I
Okay.
work in the hospital setting as a doula.
Yes.
Doula is just a new term, but it just means a support person, right? And so in the
Okay.
hospital setting, I am not qualified to practice as a midwife.
Okay.
And so I take that hat off, and I support them, and I help them, and I educate them on what it is that, they're going to be enduring, what that hospital birthing process looks like. And
Hmm.
so that families who go that route, it looks very different from the families that I'm helping if I'm serving them as a midwife. It's very different.
Okay.
Um, because women who are having their babies at home, we're having home visits, we are checking and making sure that everything is on the up and up, and so it just looks very different, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
um so those conversations and serving them, the education piece, moms who are having home births, I've noticed families more so, because even dads, we want to make sure that the dads are included. Shout out to the dads. Dads do
Please.
not get enough
Come
love.
on. Shout
They
them
don't
out.
get enough love.
Yes.
Yeah, the dads, the home birth dads of the world, shout out to them because
Yeah.
there's situations where we might not even get there fast enough,
Yeah.
and the dad is right there to catch the baby
Come.
as we're walking in the
Ooh.
door. And it
That's
just
go ahead,
happened
brothers. I
just
love it.
just a few months ago, a couple months ago. She's two
Yes.
months now. Yeah, we were heading there, and she pushed the baby out before we could get there, and dad was right ready. So yeah, and
I
so we're
love it.
preparing them for those situations, preparing
Yeah.
them to be able to handle a situation like that. Of course, again,
Mm.
these are moms that are low risk, so there is no surprise like, oh my God, this is happening or that is happening, because
Right.
that's another thing that comes up with, oh, what if this happens? What if that happens? It can happen in the hospital,
It can
and you're
happen
having
anywhere.
complications in the hospital, and
Right.
it doesn't mean that it's a higher chance of survival you being in the hospital.
Yeah.
We've seen it that you actually had a better chance being at home, but that's another thing. So it
Right.
just looks
Sure.
very different, yeah, for the
Mm.
families.
Okay. Okay. I
Yeah.
love it. And again, I wanted everybody to hear exactly what it is that you do and how you
Oh,
support.
yes.
You know what I'm saying? Because, what you're doing, number one, is extremely needed, commendable. You're doing hard work. You're
Yeah,
doing something.
man, that's deep.
Yeah.
It really is hard work.
Yeah. Yes.
My poor heart. It's a lot. Yeah.
But you
You
were obviously
yeah.
built for this.
Yeah, I guess
You
so.
were built for this, though. Like, I'm just like, I mean, again, I just trip, when I see people who are like in the nursing field or doctor, and even doctors. And it's funny because, and I more so say nurses because I know with nurses, it was more like considered like the caring profession, right? Just like a teacher, you know what I'm saying? And when I see that person who's in that field and it's like they don't have
Nasty
that, just
attitudes.
thank you. Let me just say it,
Yeah,
nasty.
nasty
And I'm,
attitudes, horrible bedside, and there's a lot of
yes.
them in labor and delivery. So it's
Oh
like
my
you're dealing
God.
with families and you have this funky attitude.
Funky attitude. You
You,
rushing. You like, I mean, dang, just quit tripping and just, talking to them like that. Like, aren't, I mean, just on a human
it's a
level,
culture. It's a culture.
what's up with that? I'm sorry. I just need to know, sis.
Yeah.
What's up
I
with
don't
that?
I don't
You
know.
don't
I
know?
don't know.
Okay.
There's some good ones. There's
I
some
know
really
it's some
good
good
labor and
ones.
delivery nurses.
Wow.
But there are others where it's just like, I don't know what happened, but you need to be able to leave that at the door. And it's
Yeah.
hard. You're dealing with life issues. I get it. But you're at work, you're trying to serve these, and you were serving. So it's
Yes.
difficult in the service industry. It's
Yeah.
so difficult. And I've learned that through practicing. Like you are of service to other people.
Yeah.
Your needs are not the most important right now.
Come on.
You have to put those on the back burner for now. That doesn't mean you neglect yourself. It just means in the moment while you're serving, you have to serve. And then finding that balance. I had to
Yep.
learn that too.
Yep.
Because I give. I'm very generous. I like to give. It's like
Mm,
I love to give, but
yep.
then it's
That's
like I
you.
give too much. And it's like you
Yeah.
gotta you gotta relax. You gotta chill out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh wow, man. This conversation was needed, sis. This right here was
This
like
was
a
good.
breath, fresh air. You are
Mm-hmm.
reminding us to tune into our greatness,
Mm-hmm.
to preparation,
Preparation.
proper preparation
Proper
prevents
preparation.
poor
For
performance.
performance,
Come
right?
on, five piece of success. We got to
The
do it.
piece of
You know what I
success.
mean?
Yes.
Like for real. Like this right here, this is what, again, when our parents are hearing this, especially first time parents, and they have those babies that are growing inside of them, those moms. And again, just like how you talked about our partnership, ABC Read and Najuma Birthing, and
Hmm.
how we are giving you books so that you can be able to give to these families.
Yeah.
Can just
It's
share a story real quick about, I know you were telling me about the parents that you given the little bath books because we've
Yes,
been giving
they
you that.
love those bath
Yeah,
books because
yeah.
I'll probe. I like you do a lot of probing questions with
Okay.
this work, and
Yes.
so I like to probe also because I like to give surprises. So
Yeah.
I'm asking like, okay, your baby likes to take bath, or because some babies they don't really. So I've
Okay.
had some families where their babies are actually showering. It's crazy.
Mm.
Like the
Shower.
toddlers.
Okay,
The
okay.
toddlers, they rather have the water hit them as opposed to sitting
Lord.
in the tubs.
Little grown
Um,
baby. No.
I know. I was like, I used to love bath time. What happened to bath time? But yes, so I mean there's so many families. And for me, I also want to shout out that being a child of a librarian, having these books, it brings warm memories. I
Yes,
wanted to make sure I shouted this out. My mom, she was a librarian, children's and a young adult librarian. So that love for
important.
reading, and I tell her this all the time, like I loved it. And it was nice that we got to spend that time. The MLK library, is shifting and now there's a new branch. And so we got a chance to go into the old building. And I'm just like, I grew up here, going and seeing where the children's area is. It's so empty now. It was like it was bittersweet. You see the
Yeah.
new building and it's nice, but it's nothing. It's nothing like the memories of the old one. But new
Uh,
memories. And so I just say shout outs to her because that
yes.
love for reading and having a library. Having books around. I brought out some of the ones. This is the documentary that I was telling you about, all my
Yes.
babies.
Oh,
This is
yes.
what I remember watching during COVID, and it sparked that love of like let's bring in that tradition back. Let's bring it back. The other
Yes.
books, and actually there's stories in here from the Arthur. And so it's based, some of her stories in Cleveland. So this one is really like wow,
What's
it's
the and what is the
it,
title of that one?
I Ain't No Ways Tired, Grandma's Hands
Come
by
on.
Bernice Mary. Her grandmother was an elder midwife.
Put it up in again. So okay, good, perfect. Because when people are watching via YouTube, then they can like
Yes.
do a screenshot if they
Oh,
need to.
yep.
I'm gonna put the titles in the description too.
Yeah. And I remember telling you about this one.
Yes.
Absolutely amazing. This is
Oh,
a fairly recent
the
book
women
that
who
came
taught the
out.
babies. I
Yes.
love that. Oh
And the
wow.
artwork is beautiful inside. I mean, it just is
Oh wow.
beautiful. So
That
I
is
mean,
gorgeous.
that love of giving books, it goes back to what was nurtured in me. So
Yes. Oh
yeah.
man. This is such a beautiful, beautiful episode. Oh my
This was.
goodness.
Thank you.
Oh
This is
my God.
wonderful.
You are just so phenomenal. I thank you once again.
Thank
And
you.
this is a way to, sum it up. And if you could tell everybody where they could follow you, so
Hmm.
give you support, they can, if they need a doula, and then you're still again, you're working towards becoming that midwife, correct? That's what you
Correct. Correct.
okay, all
Yeah.
right, all right.
My elder, my mentor, she has already said like, let's go. Come
Okay.
on.
All right.
I have so much respect for the title. And even though I've been
Mhm.
practicing for a while, I'm still a baby in the field compared to, of
Mm,
course, women who have been practicing for years. So I would consider myself a baby midwife.
yeah.
I have information and I have that passion and I've had the experience, with a number of families now. My dad has been big on trying to count like okay, you lose count after a while, but he's like, well, what number are you on now? What number are you on now? Now is 108, so it's like, wow.
Girl.
Yeah, so I'm like, for him, I'll keep it up because some people
Yeah.
you want to hear the numbers, what have you,
Right,
but
right.
the
That is
experience.
important. I think that's important too. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Okay.
experience is important because that's how our elders got their experience is
Yes.
through, learning and listening and observing, like you said. So that's
And
where
that
I'm at. Yeah.
and that respect that you have for our elders, that is something that our
Uh,
young people need to hear a lot
yes.
of. And even adults. Let me say this too, because unfortunately you have adults who they don't show that reverence to elders.
We
You
saw
know
that
what I
recently
mean?
with MLK just recently.
Girl,
Yeah. So I know
I
exactly
don't even
what you're
want to say that
saying. I
name. Yeah.
know.
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
why are we
But again,
an icon? Let's
but
respect our icons. Let's respect our figures, our black figures.
and
That's
that's a
what was
whole
taught to
other
me. I was
but
like, I want to pass that on, regardless of what they had going on in their personal lives, they still did so much for us. So
exactly.
I
Exactly.
have
Thank you
respect
for
for them.
saying that regardless of whatever, because nobody's walking around
Nobody's
perfect.
perfect.
Like really, but
Just
that is
because our sins were not exposed, it doesn't mean
exactly,
that we didn't sin. So,
exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
that doesn't take away the greatness that they were still pushing out and fighting for us. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Respect to Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. Martin Luther King
Dr. Martin
Jr.,
Luther King Jr. Hello.
El
Thank
Haj,
you.
Malik El Shabazz, Brother
Thank you.
Malcolm,
Come on.
all of
Okay.
them.
All of them. Let's grow. All right.
And Black History Month is starting
You know
tomorrow.
what I'm
Come
saying?
on.
And Black
Oh no,
History is every
today.
day.
Oh my
Okay.
God, today.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's every day, just in
It's
case
every day. It
y'all
is.
forgot. Okay.
This was wonderful. Thank you
This
so
was
much.
so welcome. Oh wow. Well, again, tell everybody real quick where they can find you
Oh
on social.
yes,
Mhm.
Najuma Birthing, Najuma Birthing at on Instagram,
Okay.
and yeah, I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm more active on my personal page than I am my business. You know, because it's hard. It's hard to push out content while you're actually in the thick of it and practicing. So
Yeah.
I would say that too, just because you might not see a whole lot of content doesn't mean that I'm not out there pushing the
Yes.
content. This is active. This is part of, you can find me here on
Mm-hmm.
YouTube. I have my videos on how to wear my wraps on Najuma Birthing on the YouTube channel.
Oh,
Yeah,
say the
so
YouTube channel again. It's Najuma
Najuma,
Birthing.
yes,
Oh, same thing. Okay, good.
same
I love
thing.
that
Yeah,
continuity. That's right. I love
yes,
it.
yes.
Yes.
Yes. So
Well, thank you, Miss Dyese Osaze.
thank
Got
you.
it all the way
You
right.
got it
I
right.
love it. I love it, y'all. Well, once again, you guys, as you all saw, as you all listened, this was a phenomenal episode. I just can't say that enough. I appreciate her tremendously, Miss Dyese Osaze, Najuma Birthing. Make sure you get it right. Make sure that you follow her on the IG, on the grams, y'all. Make sure you follow her because she's doing it, okay? Empowering our communities, making sure that our mothers and fathers, shout out to those
Shout outs
dads.
to the dads.
Shout
Yeah.
out,
Come on.
okay?
Shout outs to the dads of the world. They really are amazing. It's just, shout outs to them.
Yes. And this is a reminder to those brothers out there who you ain't on your job right. You know what I'm saying? You
Hey,
look at them brothers who are doing great things with their babies, and I'm not talking about just the babies when they're little. I'm talking about when they're growing
no,
and you
grown.
see, okay, and they're
He's
grown.
still feeding into me and I'm a grown woman.
Thank you.
It's
You see how
still
she's talking? Yes. I love
he's
it.
still pouring into me and I'm a grown woman. It doesn't stop. And so I respect shout outs to the parents because I'm learning that it's so much to take care of children. It's so much more than just feeding them and clothing them. It's about pouring into them. It's about nurturing them. Like it's so much. So I understand why we're taught to respect our parents. It could be difficult and we might have our ways, our attitudes, but I'm learning more like I respect you guys have, sacrificed so much to make sure that we're in a good space. So yeah, shout outs to the parents who are showing up for their children and nurturing them and encouraging them. Cause yeah, you can tell by how I am that my dad was a heavy hitter. He was a big part of my upbringing.
Yes, we can. Yes, we
Yeah.
can. That's a great way to end it, y'all. She dropped the mic.
Drop the mic.
Bam. So I thank you all again for listening to this dope episode of Real Reading Talk. And once again, Real Reading Talk is the platform in which we discuss the real systemic issues that are at the very core, the very foundation as to why we have high levels of illiteracy in the Black community. However, the ways in which that we can combat these issues is together, sharing the knowledge, empowerment, education, and just bringing that intuition, bringing all of that back into our communities. We got the
Mhm.
power, y'all. Trust and
We
believe.
do. We
Yes.
do. All right.
Thank you again, Miss
Thank you so
Seisha.
much.
Yes, indeed. You all take care and remember, reading is freedom.
It
Peace.
is. Peace.
Y'all know how I do it. You know how Real Reading Talk brings it, right? So that episode right there was very, very touching. I hope that you all, and it's filled with a lot of knowledge, education. And I hope that you all gained a lot of insight once again and enjoyed it. And make sure that you share it. Please make sure that you share that information. Housekeeping, real quick. I'm a pre-K through fourth grade reading tutor. So go to my website, abclearntutoring.com. Click on that free reading assessment today to get your baby the help that they need right now. Do not wait till the end of the school year. All right. Make sure that you get them in immediately. Also, I am the founder and executive director of ABC Read. ABC Read mission is to develop and nurture a culture of literacy in Black and underserved communities. We've given away close to 8,000 books. We are on a mission to give away the 10,000 books still, and we are close to that mark. And I thank you all for helping us, those of you all who donated. Please go to our website, abcread.org, to find out more information about what it is that we do in the community. And also, reading is freedom. As you see, the merch, bam, got the shirt, bam. Make sure that you grab that. Go to readingisfreedomshop.com. You guys, grab your mug, grab your shirt, your hoodie, because we need to make sure that we're igniting those conversations around literacy. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, Reading is Freedom, same name as the merch brand, all right? Make sure you subscribe, like, comment, share, hit the notification bell, all of that, so that you can be in the know of what's going on in the community as it pertains to empowering our communities through reading, okay? And the book that I've been reading is Rest is Resistance. Still reading that book. I also reopened the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. Okay. I opened that book up as well again because I said I need to get back into that mindset. Okay. So, yes, I highly recommend both of those books. And I'm going to leave you all with the quote, which is get rid of fear. Okay? Get rid of fear, period. Know that fear is there, but you push through anyway. That's the quote. Know that fear is there, but you push through anyway. Overcome the fear through education, through empowerment, through being in community. That is how we're going to push through and push back against that fear. All right. So I thank you all again for listening to another episode of Real Reading Talk. My name is Miss Seisha. I've been your most gracious host. And please make sure that you remember to keep reading for at least 30 minutes a day. And remember, reading is freedom. Peace.